In the earlier video, we looked at using Google Sheets to create a ratio level histogram chart. Google Sheets will automatically create histogram charts directly from the data. Google Sheets chooses its own intervals when it does this, what Google Sheets calls buckets. Suppose you want to set the interval. Suppose I want to use an interval of 2 centimeters. Then I'll have to enter the class upper limits and use a frequency function to calculate how many data values are in that particular interval or class. Spreadsheets and the frequency function use the class upper limit. So here in C2, I'm going to use the minimum 3 plus 2. This is also covered in the textbook. So this is going to just be 5. 3 and 2 is 5. The next class upper limit, 7, 9, 11, and 13, so that we ensure that we include the leaf length of 12. The frequency function works a little differently on an app. We do not pre-select the cells as we would on a spreadsheet in a desktop. I'll type in the frequency function, open parenthesis, and I'll type in A2 to A, I'll give it the data range first, A2 to A25. And I'll give it the class upper limit range. They're in C2 to C6. And I'll close the parenthesis, press the enter, and Google Sheets will tell me how many leaflets are in each of those classes, from 3 to 5, including 5, 6, 5 to 7, including 7 but not including 5, and so forth. There should be 24 leaflets. Let me check that there are indeed 24 leaflets using the sum function. The sum from D2 to D6 should be 24, and it is, so I've included all 24 leaflets. There are times when we want the relative frequency, and the relative frequency is just equal to 2 divided by 24. Undo when you make a mistake. Equals 2 divided by 24. I can't fill that formula down because if I do try to fill down, you'll see that I get a division by 0 error. The parameter D3, D10, if you take a good look at that cell, you'll notice that I'm dividing by the blank cell D10. That's not legal. So I'll go ahead and delete that. To fill down, I'm going to have to go back and edit my function to include a $sign in front of the 9. That locks the 9 and keeps it from shifting down. I'm going to drag my finger, tap again, autofill, and now the function fills down all of the relative frequencies. I can check to make sure that that indeed adds up to the expected values. This should be E2 full colon E6. That should add up to 1, and it does. So that would tell me that 12.5% are in that second bin, 25% are in the fourth bin, 33% or 1/3 are in that last bin. So the relative frequency tells me the relative frequency of them. The histogram chart cannot properly be made from here, not in this app. Typically in the spreadsheet on laptops and desktops, we would select these 2 cells and add the chart. But here it treats the 2 columns as 2 different series, and there's no editing option to tell it that the first series is a label. So the closest I can get to a histogram from here is to select just the frequencies and to add a chart for the frequencies. But now my x-axis is not labeled. I do have a labeled y-axis, but I do not have a labeled x-axis. And the app just does not have quite enough capability in its chart editing mode to give us what we want, to tell it that we want to use C2 to C6 as our x-axis labels. So we can get a crude look at the shape of our chart, but To edit it properly, we'd need to get onto a desktop or laptop. Still, again, it lets us choose our own interval, have a look at the shape, have a look at the distribution, what the data looks like spread out. This is useful when you have a certain number of intervals you have to specify. Somebody says you're going to have to use 7 or 8 intervals, or you have a particular width of interval that you know you'll need to use. This can be important when you're dealing with interval level data which doesn't have fractions. Google will pick fractional values which may be inappropriate to your data for a histogram at the interval level. This is ratio level data, and so the picking of non-whole number intervals, which Google Sheets does, is perfectly appropriate.